discussion, okay, on gRPC. Okay, so yeah, we'll go through the steps like what is gRPC and um, why gRPC and all those things, right? So we have a couple of small demos as well. Okay, um, yeah. So let's get started. So 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 is my screen visible to you all? I
Yes,
Yes,
mean,
Kiran.
whatever I'm
Yes, Kiran.
sharing.
yes, it is visible.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So fine. So I'm actually not presenting in my PowerPoint. Rather, I'm actually sharing it in Teams, right? So this is the first time I'm doing. So I was wondering like whether you are able to see it or not. So yeah. So this is our agenda. Like we'll see what gRPC is and why gRPC is actually being used by people now. So what are the benefits of it, and so what is protocol buffer, which is an important topic for gRPC to understand, right? So and so a small demo on protobuf and JSON performance, like so the message exchange format, right? So in REST we use JSON, and in gRPC we use protobuf. So just a small demo, very basic demo, okay? And then we'll see what are the types of gRPC calls, okay? And we'll have a small demo on one of those calls, like the basic one, unary RPC kind of gRPC call, and I'll actually show you like the other gRPC call types, right? So how to actually make them and those things, okay? So okay. So gRPC is a modern open source RPC framework developed by Google. So G, that small g in the gRPC actually stands for Google only. So it is on top of RPC framework. Like it actually mitigates the drawbacks of RPC framework, and it is actually developed by I mean on top of RPC framework. Okay, so gRPC uses protocol buffers or protobuf in short, right? So uses protobuf as its underlying message interchange format. So message interchange format is nothing but like we use JSON format to interchange messages between one service to another service, right? So we make REST template calls in Java to actually fetch or post the data that is there in other service, right? So yeah, so as in many other RPC systems, right? So gRPC is based on the idea of defining a service, specifying the methods that can be called remotely with their parameters, and all the return types and all those things. So so it actually follows the RPC pattern only. However, it has some advantages, so which will delve later in the slides. Okay, so one of the biggest advantages of gRPC is nothing but like it uses HTTP2, which actually supports streaming of messages. Okay, streaming of messages um, from client to server, right? So I mean, client can send streams of messages, and the server can also reply with stream of messages. Okay, so like so you can actually send some good amount of data from client to server or client to server to client, right? In contrast with REST JSON format. Okay, I mean, REST by default uses HTTP 1.1, right? So, unlike that, the data that you can send through your calls can be a lot heavier. Okay, however, they'll be actually compressed using protobufs. So, we'll actually see all those things right now. Okay, so. delving deep into HTTP2 can be different session. Okay, so I'm not doing that. However, it actually, like, you can say, you can think like HTTP2, like you can send or receive streams of messages in a long-lived TCP call, right? Like that connection, right? Okay, so that is what that is how you can visualize the HTTP2. And I mean, if we go with actually from the basics, right? So we have a local call. Like, if we have if we have two services order, for example, order and payment services in a single process, and you can actually call a method in payment service from order service, right? um, Directly using local function call, local method call, you can say in Java terms, right? However, if they are in different servers, you can call them. You can call the methods using RPC framework. Okay, so that it looks like a local method call. Okay, however, you are actually calling a method in a service that is actually in another server. Okay, so if RPC is already there, then why gRPC? So okay, we'll see why it is actually needed. Okay, so here in RPC, right? So yeah, you create that client stub, and using the client stub, so you'll have that RPC protocol, and through that you'll actually exchange the messages. Okay, so be it it is language agnostic, right? So however, this having this RPC protocol, right? So this is actually language specific. So you cannot have uniform way of actually defining these things like RPC protocol. So these are actually language specific, okay, in RPC. And it won't by default use HTTP one, HTTP two. Okay, so these two, when compared to gRPC, so these two are the drawbacks, we can say. Okay, and with this gRPC, right? So from a gRPC server, no matter what language it is written, okay, you can actually send a proto request, and you can get back that proto response, right? So the so gRPC actually will be implemented in two services. One is server and client, right? So that using that stub, which is nothing but like a client request, you can say. Okay, so those who already worked on RPC framework, right? So they'll actually better understand what stub means. However, those who didn't work till now, so you can actually say like that stub means like that client request encapsulation entity, you can say. Okay, and so using that stub, you'll send a request to server. Here in gRPC, you'll send a proto request. That is because you use the protobuf as your data interchange format, right? So that is why it is called proto request. That's it, nothing else. Okay, so the server will send the response, okay, to you based on the type of request that you sent. Okay, and the clients can be written in different languages, and the server can be written in different languages, but that is not a stopper in case of gRPC. Okay, so this is one thing. So yeah, now let us see what protobufs are. Okay, in a nutshell. Okay, before going deep into gRPC stuff. Okay, so protobufs are nothing but like they are actually interface definition language kind of stuff. Okay, so they actually define interfaces for client and servers. Okay. And so these are completely new things, like these are not related to any language or any platform. Okay. So if we want to actually define the method calls, right, you can use service keyword. Okay. And you can give that I mean what service you want to write. Okay. And so message means you can say model kind of stuff. Okay. So message is kind of a model and service is kind of method, you can say. Okay. So it is strongly typed, so you can see for all the fields that you're defining over here, right? So we actually have type definitions before that. Okay. So you cannot say some kind of var int, I mean var uh, some I counter equal to one kind of thing. You cannot say that because it is strongly typed. Okay. So what so it actually supports most of the types like string, what's that, integer, double, float, right? So all these kind of things it supports. Okay. So I actually missed that slide. I actually wanted to include that types as well. So yeah, no problem. I'll actually show it to you. Like in 32 is actually integer, and the other ones, right? So boolean, it also supports boolean, which is bool. Okay. So and string name equal to one means you are actually defining the order of the variables in your model. Okay. If you have two variables in that model, right? So you'll say some, if you say, right, like age or something like that. So in 32 age equal to 2. Okay. So that means like age is um, second property in that message. It means that. Okay. And also it supports collections as well, like list collection. You can create list collection using repeated, and you can create map collection using map. Okay. And this is also another word like that, this protobufs, right? So working with protobufs actually has good amount of good what's that, learning curve. Okay. So probably I cannot cover everything in this session. However, I'm actually superficially letting you know like what are the main things that are related to protobuf, right? So there is no null concept in protobuf. Okay. So uh, so these are the things, these are some of the things that actually protobuf has. Okay. So yeah. So protobuf is actually very efficient binary encoding format. So once you write that proto file, right, so you need to include some dependencies. Okay. And you need to have some plugins which I'll show you very soon. Okay. With which so it creates the actual um, language specific files. So that heavy lifting will be taken by this these Google related jars itself, like whatever gRPC jars that we are adding, right? Jars and plugins. Okay. So they'll take care of that stuff for of generating that uh, gRPC related classes and all. Okay. So and when you actually send a message, I mean, or a request, okay, in gRPC. So as I earlier mentioned, as I earlier mentioned, right? So this it will be sent as protobufs, right? So which is very fast than it is very faster than JSON actually. Okay. I'll actually show you a small demo as well, like how, like what is the difference of performance between protobuf and JSON. I mean, when you serialize and deserialize, right? Okay, so these are the official libraries. I mean, these are, I think, a few of all the official libraries that gRPC supports. So what it means is that, like, so when you write a protobuf in a Java project, okay, and when you include those jars and plugins in your pom.xml, since it has support to Java, so it can create all the necessary classes, okay, necessary classes that you actually have to work with gRPC related things, okay. So you need not create any of those Java files. Instead, these plugins will create those Java files. You can use them and you can actually send the request, whatever request you want to send, and you can implement whatever you want to implement at the server side, right? So that the request can be fulfilled, okay. So yeah, so these are the official things, like so there are I mean, there are so many ways to generate these files as well. Like you can actually use those plugins to generate these Java files, or you can use command line tool to generate these Java files. There are many ways, okay. And so this is what I was telling. So when you write a proto file, okay, so these proto files should be present in the client as well as server projects. Okay, I mean, you can say services. Okay, so for example, like order service is actually making a call to payment service, right? So this proto file should be present in order service as well as in payment service, so that the plugin which we include in both these services will actually generate those Java classes, and you can use either of these classes as client or server, like so both can act as client and server, okay. So that is how you actually work with gRPC, okay. So yeah, and till now, anyone has any questions, or in anyone, I mean, am I going too much fast? Okay, I take it as no. Like, so if you find any difficulty in this discussion, right, please feel free to stop me, and you can give your feedback. Okay. Yeah, we can move on to the next one. So yeah, you can see here, right, the gRPC client is Java and gRPC server is Go. Like, this can be anything. Like, it is language specific, language agnostic, and platform agnostic as well. Okay. So yeah, we can see a small demo kind of thing. Okay. So this is already so due to time constraints, right? So I already actually wrote this thing, like this performance test demo part, right? So what I have done here, so if you can see, right, I've added these proto files, okay. Uh, okay, so this is a sample of proto file, okay. So are you able to
Hello,
see
Kiran.
the IntelliJ?
We
Okay,
cannot
I
see
think
the screen.
okay, okay. Just give me a second. Think I need to. I just give me a second. I'll actually share my screen. So you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, Kiran.
Yes, Kiran.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Like, I was actually thinking, like, I was sharing my screen itself, but yeah. Yeah, so this is a sample proto file that you can see, right? So first of all, I mean, we mentioned syntax equal to proto 3. Okay, this is because by default, if you write a proto file, it will use proto 2 syntax. Okay, so there are some advantages in proto 3. Okay, and so that is why we actually use proto 3, and proto 1 version is actually for Google itself. It is not outsourced. Okay, so we can use proto 2 or proto 3 syntax. Okay, so yeah, and this import is nothing but like we, I mean, like in Java, right, we actually have imports, right? So it is very similar to that. So we are actually importing other proto files to this file. Okay, and this option Java multiple files equal to true, right? So this is nothing but to flag proto that when you generate the actual files, please generate it in multiple files rather than generating it in single file. Okay, so if it is not there, it will generate everything into a single file. Okay, so which will be very harder to actually understand. Like even though I mean, even in multiple files it will be difficult to understand, but we'll have that complexity a bit less. Okay, when in multiple files, because we'll have multiple entities in our proto files, right? So it'll be better if we actually give this option. Okay, and a Java package means like this is actually to specify in which Java package you need to have these models created, Java models created, okay, by the plugin. Okay, so message person means we actually want to create a model called person, and these are the properties. Okay, and string means a string, in 32 means integer. Okay, so this address is an enum, okay, which we defined in address.proto. Okay, so sorry, I think this is also a different model. Okay, sorry about that. So here we have a post box, street, city, right? And so why we are actually mentioning common dot address means like it is actually um, so we need to specify the package as well. Even here we are actually specifying the package and the actual proto file name in order to import those files, right? So that is how it works. And repeated means we are list. Okay, so we actually want list of cars in this person model. That is what we are actually trying to do. Okay, trying to actually specify, in other words. Okay, so in car.proto we have all these values. Okay, here body style, this is enum. We can specify enum also over here. Okay, uh, so that said, we can see the pom.xml. Okay, the what's that, the dependencies that we have, right? So these are some dependencies like protobuf, and so this is protobuf dependency, right? And this is the actual Maven plugin which is key to this generation. Okay, so this proto C is proto compiler. Okay, so we need to include this Maven plugin, protobuf Maven plugin. Okay, which actually generates the models from the proto files. And here somewhere, yeah, it actually um, we actually need to specify this proto source root, which means like where all these proto files are located, right? Okay, so with that, so all the generated classes will reside in this target. Okay, so I'll show you quickly. So I'll clean this so that the target will be empty. Okay, the target is not there now, right? So I'll actually compile. I think here we actually gave compile goal, right? So I'm actually executing compile uh, goal from Maven. Okay, so in this target generated resources protobuf, right? So you can see all the models that are created, right? So address, so internally it extends multiple things. Okay, so you need not worry about all these things, but all you need is like these models: address, car, okay, is dealer, person, these models. Okay, so using these models you can actually make requests or get the responses and all that stuff. Okay, so so you cannot directly create constructor for these models. Instead you actually have to use the builder pattern. Okay, so for all the generated models you will have this new builder and you can set the properties. Okay, and using builder pattern, I mean, this is the only way that you can create constructors for all the models that are actually generated from a protobuf. Okay, so this, having said this, like yeah, performance test, right? So all we actually want is how faster is our protobuf when compared to um, JSON, right? So what I have done here, so so I'm actually creating a gRPC model and REST model. Okay, so I have person JSON, okay, normal JSON model. Okay, and I'm actually setting values to it, and I'm actually serializing and deserializing it. Okay, so this is what I'm doing, and I'm actually creating a runnable instance with that. Okay, and the same gRPC also. So I'm actually creating a person model which is created by our protobuf plugin, right? So, and I'm actually serializing. So 2 byte arrays to serialize it. Okay, and if you want to deserialize, you have this pass from method. Okay, if you pass that byte array, right? So you'll get that object back. Okay, so these are the only things that I'm doing, and I'm here also I'm creating a runnable. Okay, so from the main method, I'm actually running the performance test. Okay, for JSON as well as gRPC. Okay, so in run performance test, what I'm doing is I'm actually running this 2 lakh times. Okay, this dot run method, which is like so it'll serialize and deserialize. Okay, it'll run 2 lakh times and it'll print the time that is actually taken by both these. I mean, both these operations. Okay, so let us see. This can be executed in batches wise as well. Like you can have 5 batches. Okay, here I can actually repeat this in 5 times, right? So you can see the JSON serialization and deserialization is taking 12-13 in milliseconds, and the gRPC model serialization and deserialization took 192 milliseconds. So that is far more better than what JSON is actually doing, right? So so if you run in, I mean, if you run it in multiple times, right? So you can even better see the time taken. Like the gRPC one actually consistently takes very lesser time than JSON serialization and deserialization. Okay, so whatever I'm showing over here, right? So I'll share the Git links if you need. Okay, so uh, I'm sharing my presentation again. Just give me 1 second. Is that okay? Okay, so we saw that performance test, right? So yeah, I mean, under the hood, what actually happens in gRPC thing, right? So yeah, till now, anyone has any questions, or if anyone has anything to add, right? Please feel free to add as well. Okay, yeah, we can continue. So yeah, when gRPC client sends a request, right? So it actually encodes and it actually creates a client stub, right? Using protocol buffers. So with that gRPC runtime, so it'll actually send it to the internal transport layer, which actually sends the request using HTTP2 protocol. So which actually enables our application to send stream of messages as well. Okay, and in the server side, it'll actually receive it and decode the stub, right? And it'll actually perform that call, and it actually returns the response. Okay, so this is what is internally happening, and the protocol here used is HTTP2, right, which actually makes a lot of difference than other calls that we actually see using REST, right? So, so yeah, I mean, so right now, like where gRPC should be used, like so gRPC can be used um, for inter microservice communication. Okay, so no matter what language is used to develop that microservice, so you can use gRPC. Okay, for communication of those two microservices. So even if you have multiple inter microservice communication calls, right, like so it'll so this gRPC will actually reduce the latency of your actual request from UI to API, right? So that is because the inter microservice communication is very fast, very faster than JSON. That HTTP one based that our REST communication, right? So it definitely reduces your latency. Okay, even if you actually have to send multiple requests, right? So you can send in a single TCP long-lived call, and that actually reduces I don't know, I cannot compare that, right? However, it actually makes a lot of difference. Okay, the number of connections will be reduced, and the amount of the data that you send or the server returns will actually matter a lot. Okay, uh, so I actually saw that so there is I mean, these are some of the most popular organizations that use gRPC, right? And so what I actually studied is that, like so why gRPC? I mean, gRPC is not widely used between web client and web servers. So that is because the support is not fully present in the modern browsers even till date. But this news is actually this news is actually, I think, 7 months ago, I guess, where I've studied. Okay, so I need to deep dive into this. However, using gRPC web, we can definitely make calls from our web client or browser to our backend, right? Okay. So gRPC web is another huge discussion that we can have. Okay, so yeah, probably I think by now it should actually support. I mean, by now, like gRPC web should be pretty much efficient. Okay, however, what I've studied is that like gRPC web is not that efficient, and it is not fully functional and supportive to actual gRPC framework. Okay, so that is why people actually use for inter microservice communication between, I mean, among microservices, but not from web client to server. Okay, so this is what I've studied. However, I'll actually deep dive into gRPC web also, and we so probably if time permits, we can have another session on gRPC web. Okay, and we can see that. So finally, we can. So these are the types of gRPC calls. Well, the first one is unary RPC, which is kind of synchronous. Okay, here the client sends one request and the server replies with one response. Okay, so this is unary RPC. Okay, the other one is server streaming RPC. So here client sends one request and server actually replies with a stream of messages. Okay, and the third one is client streaming RPC. So here client sends multiple messages, the stream of messages, and server replies with one response. Okay, and the final fourth one is bidirectional streaming RPC. Here, when client sends stream of messages, server also respond with stream of responses. Okay, so this is how I mean these are the four types of gRPC calls. Okay, and we'll have a small demo on unary RPC, right? So here we'll create a gRPC server. Okay, and we'll add a protobuf to it. Okay, and we'll have the server side implementation. Okay, and instead of testing with gRPC client, right? I mean, a Java service that is developed using gRPC. Instead of that, we can test using Bloom RPC as well, which is a Postman kind of tool. Okay, and I'll show you that one as well, and create gRPC client, and then we'll create a gRPC client. So we'll add the same protobuf to this gRPC client, which we added to gRPC server, right? And we'll make a request from this client to the server. Okay, I mean using REST endpoint. I mean that is for our convenience. Like okay, so for this, right? So we'll see. Okay, so we'll have this. Okay, we'll have this proto file. Okay, this is gRPC client, right? Sorry, I'll show you the gRPC server part. Okay, yeah. Yeah, of course, the proto is the same for both these server and client, right? As I earlier mentioned. Okay, so here the syntax is proto 3
So,
as we earlier saw, right?
Can you share
ABK,
the
yes,
screen
yeah.
Oh,
as uh,
sorry. I'm extremely sorry. Sorry, guys. I'm sharing my screen. You're able to see it, right?
yes.
Okay. Yeah. So in So for we are actually looking at the server application. Okay, um, here we have this proto file, right? So here we have mentioned syntax proto, and we have one other proto file called util.proto. Okay, so we are actually building a small book service kind of thing. Okay, so so book request contains book ID. So we are actually trying to fetch a book by its ID. Okay, book ID. Okay, and so the response actually contains book ID, name, and its type. Type is kind of enum. Okay, so here the these are three values, right? So these three value it corresponds to one of these values. And also one more thing I want to point out. So proto enums actually has I mean these enums have one I mean, kind of peculiar behavior. Like the first item, right? The first item should always start with zero. Okay, if I remove this, it'll actually throw you an error. So I actually installed a plugin, I think protocol buffers or something, so due to which this syntax highlighting is happening and this validation is also happening, right? So first enum value should be zero in Proto 3. Okay, so this is a feature in Proto 3 only, since we are using Proto 3, right? So what this means is that, like, so if you don't set any value to this, right? So for example, this one, right? If you don't set any value to this, it will by default be this value, whatever is zeroth, whatever is in zeroth position, right? It will take that value. So for the default value purpose, it actually require you to specify a zeroth position value in enum. Okay, so I already mentioned you, right? So there is no null concept in protobus. Okay, so these two are the models, like one is request and one is response. Okay, and our Java package that we actually want our things, right? Like these classes created, the relevant classes should be created in this com sales dot book. Okay, package. So sorry. So this is the service, book service. Okay, so as you might visualized already, so in client we'll actually send this book request, and in server it'll actually return you the book response. Okay, so this is how it works. So the same proto files, right? So these two proto files will be present in our gRPC client as well. Okay, so we'll clear the target for now. Okay, so okay, so we have these things present, right? Generated sources, proto. No, I don't want. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so these are the models, right? So book request. So book request has the other things, right? So other interfaces and all those things. So it will create. So what we are interested in, right? Or this book request, book response, this type, right? And this book service gRPC. So for each service that we have, right? So it actually creates two kind of stubs. Okay, okay. So one is synchronous and another one is asynchronous stub. Okay, so that is because for unary RPC thing, right? So for unary RPC call, we use blocking stuff, that is synchronous one. Okay, for all the other kind of things, right? Other kind of what's that other types of calls, right? So this server streaming, client streaming, bidirectional. For these things, we'll use that asynchronous one. Think here in big service gRPC, we can see that. I think book service gRPC blocking. Yeah. So blocking stub, right? So using this blocking stub, we'll actually send synchronous request. Okay. Service. Okay. So this is actually a synchronous one. Okay. So you can actually see. Okay, this book service stub is asynchronous one. So these two are the things that it will create. Okay, first all the services that we have. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, here in this book service, right? So we are actually implementing our server side of things, right? So here what we have to do, we should annotate it with gRPC service, which actually tells gRPC that it's a gRPC service and it can serve the gRPC requests that are coming from client, right? So it should actually extend book service IMPL base, which is generated by our plugin, okay, as part of gRPC system. So here we actually override this getBook method. Okay, getBook method. So what we have to do, like we are having book request, right? So book request, it should be one parameter, and this is the stream observer. So I'll let you know. So this getBook, right? Book service. Yeah, so this is how it creates. So it will add this parameter to whatever whatever parameters that we gave in our proto, right? Okay, so that this response observer is the one which is responsible to send the response. What's that response data? Okay, so just actually printing I mean kind of logger message. I'm not using any login framework because this is a small demo kind of thing, right? I didn't include any logger thing, but however in real time actually we use logger, right? So I'm actually logging out a message, okay, using that book id. And so it is a static response. I'm actually creating a book response using builder pattern. Okay, setting book id with whatever id that came in with in the request, right? And I'm setting type as history and setting the name as first word bar. Okay, and I'm actually creating this response. So this stream observer or response observer, right? So we actually need to call this on next and send this response. Okay, so I'll show you in a while, like the other kind of calls, right? So there also we use this on next, okay, and to actually send this the data, okay. And so you need to call this on completed when you actually set all the values in that stream observer, so that it actually won't wait for the other values to be set or other values to be written. So since the server can return a stream of responses, right? So it won't wait any further. Like we if we call on completed, right? So oops, sorry. So this is server part, right? So we can actually, and the other thing is that, like so you already saw this, right? So so these are the dependencies that we've added. Okay, so gRPC Spring Boot starter, okay, and gRPC stub, gRPC protobuf. These are the dependencies that we have to add. And So these are the so this protobuf maven plugin which we earlier saw in the other slide, right? Okay, so we have mentioned the sources root as well. Okay, the we have created a proto folder, and we have mentioned the same to same as proto sources root. Okay, so so this is the thing. So I'm actually starting it. Okay, so our server has started, right? So we have mentioned that so it should start at on 8090. So it is started on 8090. So we actually we can see um, 567. Okay, I'm actually changing this book. So in this is Bloom RPC. So in real time, you might not use this tool that much, but I just want you to let you know about this tool. Like this Bloom RPC is used to test that gRPC server calls, right? This can act as a client. Okay, so here you actually need to give your protos, so whatever proto files you have, right? So where that services are there, right? So we've added the book service proto. Okay, in that this get book method is there, right? So using this, you can actually send whatever data you actually want to send, right? And it will actually give you the response. Okay, so this book ID and name and type, right? So probably like if you want, like we can actually change some of its data and see whether it is properly giving the response or not. Okay, so what are the other things? Fantasy. Okay, so tell me any fantasy book here. I'm poor at book reading.
Atomic Habits.
What's that?
Atomic Habits. Is that any book name, right? Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Currently, he's reading that book.
Instead of listening to this session.
No, no, no.
I
Hey,
bought it long
just
time
kidding.
ago, but I did not complete it.
Okay, no worries. You'll complete it. You'll complete it. Don't worry. Okay, so we'll actually change this book ID as well. Okay, okay. So it is actually giving us the right response. So it is actually hitting properly server, and it is actually giving us the response, right? So, and now we can actually go to gRPC client. Okay, so here also you can see the same proto files are there. In constants, you have this util proto as well, where this enum is mentioned. Okay, so here you can actually have a look at the client stuff. Okay, so for the client, right? So I mean, if you want to use this, right, like I'm actually currently not using this, I guess. So if you want to use this, you can have this service stereotype, so that it will be it can be auto-weight to your controller, right? Okay, so using the service annotation, you actually override this getBook method. Okay, so override means like you actually define this getBook method and stuff, not overriding, sorry. So here what you need to do is like you need to create a channel. Create a channel means like so where your server is, you need to specify, and you need to uh, create that channel to send those messages, right? Okay, your request. So this is how we can create the channel. So as our server is running on 8090 port, so we just mentioned that, and this is the negotiation type. Okay, so there are other negotiation types as well, like instead of plain text, right? So this use plain text means like this is not secure connection. Okay, this is not a secure connection between these microservices. You can just use non-SSL plain text format to send and receive messages. So that this is what it means. And you can mention, I think, TLS, I think, okay, transport security, and so those options, right? I didn't um, deep dive into it. Okay, so how we, I think we can actually create a secure connection between those two microservices using TLS connection and those things as well. Okay, so generally the security, right? Like the security will be I mean our from our web client to web server, and in I mean even in our REST environment, right, that we actually normally are in. So here also we use normally HTTP only. I mean among the inter microservice calls, right? Inter microservice communication. So 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 this is what it means. Okay, and so you can construct the book request as I earlier mentioned, right? You, the builder pattern is the only way to construct the models, I mean the objects or posers, right? So you can have this book ID from your request. Okay, so and so you are actually using this blocking stub. So I shown you right previously. So book service blocking stub. So since this is unary RPC type of call, so you are using blocking stub. Okay, so you can pass this manage channel and you'll get this blocking stub instance. And using that blocking stub, you can call this get book method, which we have implemented a little while ago. Okay, so I'm actually printing that book response over here. Okay, and I'm actually closing this, I mean shutting down this manage channel. Okay, so okay, so let us actually have this. Okay, so okay, so this books. Okay, let us use this book service. Okay, okay. If I'm not wrong, this will definitely work. I was actually experimenting with different things, so that is why it is. So I mean, you can see like for this, even the gRPC server is also started on 9090, and so you can actually I mean use this as a server as well for other clients. Okay, and you can use this as a client to other servers as well. Okay, that actually, so actually this is actually started on 8080. Okay, and okay, and here, okay, okay. So you actually got this. Oh, no, no, this is not the endpoint, right? So old, I guess. Okay, so for this, I didn't print anything. I mean, I didn't written anything. Okay, here you can see. Okay, I called different things, right? So just give me a second. Okay, so when I call this, so it is actually printing that it's actually printing that response, like okay, book ID name. I don't think why it is not, why it didn't print that type, right? I need to see, look at that. Okay, however, so I think I'm actually just logging it, right? So probably I need to check. Even we can see, right? Even we can see that book response, right? Oh, okay. Type is not coming. Okay. Anyways, like this is what it is. Okay. So I mean, I'll look at why the type is not coming, right? So yeah. So instead of creating this managed channel, I mean, normally we don't create all this managed channel and all these things. So okay, um, so what we do is like this is another way of actually dealing things. Okay, so here we can use gRPC client annotation. Okay, and you can actually give a name to that gRPC client. Okay, and you can use this blocking step. It is the same as we whatever we saw previously, right? However, it's a nice way of doing things. That's it, nothing else. Okay, synchronous client. So what we need to do is like you need to go to application.yaml and configure gRPC client. This is the name of the gRPC client, right? And you need to give this address, like where the server is actually running for this client. Okay, so we are running the server on localhost 8090, right? So we actually are giving this thing, and we need to give that negotiation type as well. So remember you I mean we used use plain text method, right, on that in that call. So it is the same negotiation type. So whatever we were doing over there, we actually moved it to application.yaml, and we actually are using that gRPC client, this thing. Okay, so that's it, nothing else. Okay. Uh, so yeah, I mean, so here, right, I'm actually after getting this book response, I'm actually printing it. I created a new model in this service itself, and I'm actually copying all the values from that model. Like, so there is some serialization. I mean, there is some serialization issue that is actually coming. So when it is actually returning this book control from this book controller, right? So the Jackson need to know like how to serialize and deserialize that. I mean, at least deserialize that gRPC stub, right? Okay, that gRPC responsive model, right? So I think there actually it is facing some issues. So that is why for now I created a temporary model over here in somewhere. Yeah, this one. Okay, I just created a record and I didn't think like a class is necessary. This is as you might already know, this is a new feature in Java, right? So if you don't have any other things to specify in just I mean accept the properties, right? So you can just create a record, and you can it'll actually create a default all args constructor, and the setters. Okay, setters and getters, I guess. Okay, that is very simple thing. Okay, so I'm using that all args constructor, and I'm actually setting the value. Okay, and so this is how you can actually get that response over here. That's it. Okay, so the main thing is here is that like so you need to have those proto files in the client as well as server, and you need to properly send the request using gRPC client, and you need to properly implement the response using gRPC server. Okay, and you need to configure where, I mean, in client, right, you need to configure where your server is running. Okay, and that's it. Like that should actually do the miracles with gRPC. And I'll actually share you. I don't know whether I added in that this one or not. Um, I'm actually unable to show it to you. Okay, so there are some Git repos. Okay, where you can see the other type of calls, right? Okay, so I think this is server, right? Yeah, so you can see, right, like so see so this is author request, like this is also a kind of book author kind of application, where you will get, I mean, or in this unary RPC call, right, where you'll get an author by author ID. Okay, so so they are getting a single request and they're sending single response, right? So get books by author. Okay, so he is sending a single. I mean, this is server streaming, right? So um, uh, the client is sending single request, like author, this single author ID, and server is actually returning multiple responses. So so what we do in our what's that in our REST environment. So we actually collect all the values and we'll return it as list, right? Here it is not the case. So as and when it receives, it actually sends through response observer. I mean, it actually puts on next, right? And it, so before it actually completes, before this for loop is completed, right, the server actually starts sending the responses, the response data to client. Okay, so there will be no delay, like it won't collect all the things and it will send it to the client. Okay, as soon as it receives a data piece, it will immediately throw it back to client. Okay, so when we, sorry, so the response observer will actually wait till we come, call this on completed, right? So once we call on completed, it stops sending responses. Okay, so this is one of the biggest benefits of benefits that we have, right, that we have in gRPC. Okay, so you need not wait for all the values, all the response items, okay, to be retrieved. Okay, as in when you get that item, you'll actually send it to the client, so that client will do whatever it wants, right? So yeah, so here you actually, here what is it actually, so get expensive book. So the client is sending a stream of requests, like it is sending multiple requests, and using those things, right? So the server needs to send a single book. Okay, so 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 this is what so it is actually receiving all those books. Okay, and it is tracking the price, and based on the expensive price, right, so it is actually returning a single value in this on completed. So it's actually, it's actually so we are actually so stream observer is an interface, right? So we are actually having an our set implementation of it, and we are receiving it, and we are actually sending the response in on completed. Okay, so in on error, we will actually throw whatever the exception is there with us, right? So we'll throw it the same. Okay, and get books by gender. So this is where bidirectional streaming works. So the client will send all the genders, and the server will respond with books. Okay, and see the client. So here it is receiving the request from client. Okay, so and here the server is actually returning the response in uncompleted. Okay, so this is what we actually do. I mean, um, this is what we can actually say about all these gRPC type of calls, right? Okay, and I mean, so with I mean, if you are familiar with unary RPC, right? So you'll be actually dealing with all the other RPC kind of things within no time. Okay, so it's just that receiving the requests and sending the responses. That's it. That should be the key to understand this one. Okay, and okay, so this is the okay. So I've actually added some resources to this. Okay, PPT. So even our Skillsoft library, right? So it also has a couple of videos on gRPC introduction and all. So you can get start with it, and you can start with that, and you can study the docs. Okay, I've included a couple of docs over here, and I've included a couple of YouTube links. Okay, where you can actually see the I mean, you can get a nice overview, um, unlike the one by me. Okay, and you can actually work on this gRPC stuff. I think this URL, right? So they actually will explain you how that unary RPC will work, right? And then I think this YouTube link, I guess, will actually make you walk through all the other type of calls as well. Okay. Yeah, so I think with that, yeah, we have concluded, right? So yeah, that's it from me. And if anyone has any questions, yeah, please let me know. Like, yeah, yeah, Ratikant. Hello. I think someone raised their hand, right? No? Okay. Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me. Like even if you want any other sessions on Java related things, right? So please feel free to I mean let me know so that I'll plan accordingly. Even I'll try to plan another session on this gRPC because so that I can show you probably on that server streaming or client streaming part, right? And also on if time permits and if I think it is worth, right? We can actually discuss on gRPC web as well. I mean, if it is fully compatible with gRPC, right? So I'll check that first, and if that is, then we can actually have a session on that one as well. Okay.
So, Kiran, thank you so much for the insightful and informative gRPC session you provided. And I appreciate the
Thank
time
you.
and effort you invested in preparing and delivering such a valuable presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pravina.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, team, thank you. If you have any questions, please reach out to Kiran AVK.
Thank you, Elton.
Sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thank you,
all.
Karan.
Thank you. Too.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kiran. Thank you for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you,
Thank
Kiran.
Thank you,
you.
Kiran.
Thank you. Bye.